I hope you found this morning's discussion to be as thoughtful and thought-provoking as I have. We have much more for you in store this afternoon. I hope that you, as you noted Christy's remarks this morning, that the themes that have inspired this year's program are the unifying forces behind MAS's work over the last 125 years. In that spirit, I want to mention a few of our recent and active projects where some of those principles are manifested. I am proud of everything we've accomplished over this last year. We have been focused on getting back to fundamental issues that make MAS a voice for the future of our city. That means putting our advocacy hats on. It means investing in our partnerships with fellow organizations that share our commitment to the betterment of New York. And it means standing up for New Yorkers and their neighborhoods in the debates that will shape our city. And we have been hard at work doing just that. As it turns out, this has been quite a momentous year for preservation issues in New York and around the country. Rallying together, the preservation communities successfully beat back two short-sighted attempts to eliminate a common-sense program that encourages private investment in historic buildings, the New York State and federal historic tax credits. Although both were originally set for elimination in this year's budget, they survived after months of public protest, including hundreds of you and other MAS members who contacted New York State's congressional delegation and state legislature in protest. In January, the Landmarks Preservation Commission released a series of proposed amendments to the rules governing its operations. MAS released a series of maps tracking LPC's permit applications and decisions citywide and testified about the need for changes before amendments were approved. Throughout the summer and spring, we worked with fellow advocates to convince LPC to offer a more transparent process in terms of public hearings on the updated proposal. Interim Chair Fred Bland acknowledged the need to consult the community before finalizing those changes and announced a second public hearing, which is actually being held next week. In the meantime, we welcome the appointment of Sarah Carroll, our new Landmarks Preservation Chair, who we believe is fully up to the task of governing this essential agency that we are delighted to have helped create, lo those many years ago. In June, MAS traveled to Albany to lobby against a bill that would have lifted the city's cap on residential floor area ratio and led to dramatic increases in citywide bulk and density without sufficient public review. Hundreds of MAS members contacted state legislators by email and phone to echo our concerns. And in the end, the proponents of the bill backed down, and the FAR cap survives another legislative year. As you will hear a little later in our remarks, we and others will rally to ensure that our public processes are deep enough that the ultimate return of this zoning tool to New York City follows the kind of robust planning and public processes that New Yorkers deserve. We continue to expand our Adopt a Monument program, the direct heir to our founding mission of promoting public art in New York City. Our latest project is the restoration of the Grand Central Stones, 13 stone pillars that were placed in Van Cortlandt Park at the turn of the century to identify the most durable materials for the construction of the terminal. In the spring, they received their new public signage, put in place by our partners at the New York City Parks Department, explaining their fascinating history and highlighting MAS's restoration, which was made possible with the support of the Portzell Foundation. This summer, we concluded a year's worth of advocacy alongside the Pratt Center, the Design Trust, and others, with the news that the city has agreed to preserve more than 300,000 square feet of manufacturing space in the Central Garment District and pledged $20 million for the purchase of a building that will house displaced small businesses. Last week, the Economic Development Corporation released a request for expressions of interest to identify entities interested in acquiring and operating that property. We are proud to have been a part of this hard-won victory on behalf of entrepreneurs and skilled workers, mostly immigrants and mostly women, who have made New York City the capital of the fashion industry. Our 2018 Livable Neighborhoods program, which trains local leaders in under-resourced communities to act as land use advocates, received more than 50 applications from grassroots organizations eager to bring this resource to their neighborhoods. Due to our budget constraints, we are only able to work in 2 deserving neighborhoods this year, East Harlem and Long Island City, but we're looking forward to the expansion of the program next year in 2019. We are taking advocacy to the courts as well, with 2 Article 78 lawsuits against the city for actions we believe to be illegal. The taking of Marx Brothers Playground, a public park in East Harlem, to allow for construction of a 710-foot residential tower, and the gerrymandering of a lot at 200 Amsterdam that flouts the spirit of the zoning code even more badly than we have become accustomed to. To help us in this work, MAS has proudly relaunched the Menapace Fellowship this year, bringing on new legal counsel to help us go head-to-head with the opposition on issues like these matters. As Speaker Johnson remarked earlier today, Penn Station continues to be an extremely important issue for the city and for MAS. When you talk about shaping a city, one of the things that shapes it is the accumulation of millions of first impressions, the feeling that one gets when one enters the city for the very first time, or as you enter it every day for the first time. The governor just announced a $13 billion program to overhaul JFK and improve the first impressions it makes on visitors. But Penn Station sees nearly as many passengers every day as all 3 of our regional airports, and it is not a welcoming first impression. Later this week, MAS and our partners at the Regional Plan Association, Tri-State Transportation Campaign, the Design Trust, and Transportation Alternatives will be announcing a new initiative to jumpstart progress on Penn. At last year's summit, I presented our 2017 Accidental Skyline Report, as some of you will remember, in which we announced an agenda of reforms to the city's land use processes that would close the loopholes that allow out-of-context development to go up without adequate planning or public input. The concerns raised in that report have formed the rallying call for a campaign we have dubbed the Fight for Light. Later this fall, we are joining together with New Yorkers for Parks to demand that strong safeguards are put in place to protect the light and air that is so essential to the vitality and healthfulness of New York City's open spaces and streets. And I'm delighted to share that one of the tricks of the trade we exposed in last year's report, the creation of excessive mechanical voids that act as interior stilts, propping up towers with vacant floors on lower levels, is being addressed finally by the City Planning Commission. And if you joined us last year, you might recall that a major tranche of the report revealed the shortcomings of our city environmental quality review process called CEQR. I am delighted today to give you a little preview of the next chapter of that analysis, our new report, Taking a Harder Look, that will be released later this month. First, a few clarifications for those of you less well-versed in the deeper machinations of city planning. CEQR is the city's process by which potential impacts of discretionary actions, such as rezonings, are evaluated. The evaluation is included in an environmental impact statement, an EIS, An EIS is a public document written by consultants, usually hired by the city, that outlines the full development and land use changes and then of a particular rezoning, and then evaluates the impact that it might have on a variety of environmental factors, such as traffic, transit, open space, shadows, air quality, noise, and schools. An EIS also evaluates alternatives to the action and is supposed to identify mitigation measures to address these impacts. In our upcoming report, MAS will look at how environmental impact statements evaluated development expected from the Long Island City and the downtown Brooklyn rezoning. In Long Island City, 40 lots were affected by the rezoning analysis, generally northwest of Sunnyside Yard, and was intended to create a new central business district by rezoning manufacturing and industrial areas to mixed use to promote the development of office space. The rezoning in downtown Brooklyn affected 33 blocks between Tillery Street, Adams Street, Skimmerhorn, and Ashland Place, and was intended also to create a central business district to increase density for commercial, residential, and academic uses and connect disparate land uses. In this map of Long Island City in 2001, before the rezoning, uses were primarily industrial and manufacturing and are represented in purple. The Long Island rezoning has changed land use in the area from primarily industrial and manufacturing to residential. Notice the yellow on this map now in 2018. What was developed was quite different than what was predicted or evaluated. The rezoning succeeded, certainly, in increasing density. However, as you can see from this chart, the rezoning uses on the left and the reality of the community now on the right is quite different. The projected rezoning imagines 6 million square feet of new development. More than twice than that has been actually achieved. It also anticipated 800,000 square feet of residential, but instead 10 times that amount has actually been built, and only a third of the commercial building that was anticipated by the rezoning has actually been effectuated. In downtown Brooklyn, this map shows you what land use was like before the rezoning. There are large swaths of commercial and office space identified in orange. Yeah, there we go. Compare the 2018 map to the 2004 map. Large swaths of previously commercial and office space in orange are now residential, yellow, on this map. There is nothing wrong with residential development, especially in a city desperate for more housing, but accommodating a new residential population without planning is, well, not very good planning. The projected development that was anticipated in the rezoning was about 7 million square feet, but only 1 million of it was anticipated to be residential. In fact, with 10% more development actually built than was anticipated, more than 6 times the amount of residential development has indeed been constructed or is on the way in the downtown area. And almost none of the commercial development that was anticipated was actually built. This is not just a whoops moment. The effects of underestimated development in both cases is troubling. Appropriate mitigation measures were not recommended and have led, for instance, to a dearth of school seats in downtown Brooklyn. The report will provide a range of recommendations for improving the CEQR process and strengthening evaluation methodology. I hope that this taste of the study will encourage you to come and hear our recommendations more fully at the Center for Architecture on November 18th. That is the day that we will actually unveil the entire study. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to sharing more with you soon. Take care. November 8th.